Good afternoon, everyone. It's a rare occasion when Blaine Bartlett and myself are at home in our studios at home. Welcome, Blaine. It was so nice to share the stage with you as you were the MVP as we spotlighted Blaine Bartlett in his own playbook to success on Office Hours, the TV show, streaming on Apple season 6. So, Blaine, thank you so much. You still have the audience puzzled and perplexed by the incredible intelligence that you pervade on us. It was amazing. I took a big chance, just so those before we bring David on here, I took a big chance. I took Blaine off of the co-host panel and put him in the spotlight, and it was the biggest payoff of the show. All the extraordinary guests, they're still talking about you, man. You were incredible, just dropping nugget after nugget after nugget. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for saying so.
Okay. And then before we get to the double D, David Dodson is here. I have to say one more thing. Yesterday, Blaine, on Office Hour, of the over 5,000 interviews that I've done, I had my favorite interview of all time. Not from John Hennessy, not from Phil Knight, not from Brett Favre or Cameron Diaz, Deepak Chopra or Sadhguru, or any of the other extraordinary people we got on here. But it came from John's Crazy Socks. And if you haven't looked up John's Crazy Socks, if you want to laugh and cry, it was the best interview I've ever had. Raluca is in the backstage shaking her head yes. We are going to put it everywhere. But I sent it to Justin, who Blaine does some mentoring for, because he was with me at the Kingdom at TaylorMade when I did it. And Justin called me maybe 45 minutes ago. I sent the link and he was still crying. He's like, oh my God, that's the best interview I've ever heard, let alone from you. So just a little precursor. No pressure, David Dodson. You're a Stanford guy. You'll be able to handle it. But anyway, I had to give a little preempt here. We have David Dodson here, Stanford University Graduate School of Business faculty. And he has an extraordinary book that's quite pragmatically necessary today, The Manager's Handbook. And running an organization is difficult. Blaine gets paid millions of dollars to help people do so. Now I got two experts that me. Welcome to Office Hours, David Dodson.
Thank you. I'm a little intimidated. I've got to follow Cameron Diaz and Crazy Socks and Lord.
Trust me, Cameron Diaz is okay, but you're in the same league. But it's the Crazy Socks kid it's a tough one to follow, and I can't wait to send you the link. And you'll probably agree with me because I've been on thousands of interviews, and I can't beat Crazy Socks kid. So don't worry.
All right, good.
So we have a lot of critical business issues today that face us in the managerial side of stuff. Being caught in between executives and employees as a manager is very difficult. Blaine deals with it all the time. What are some of the newest challenges, David, that you address in the book that you see or are deemed to be the reason why the productivity is down, engagement is down, and the challenges are up?
Yeah, I think there's a big deficiency in how we train people how to lead. And the MBA programs have this deficiency. We talk at feet, and then they have an expensive MBA program that lasts 2 years. And of course, I'm part of the problem because I teach at Stanford University, and I also lecture at Harvard and MIT and other business schools. Then we send them out and we forgot to tell them how to run a meeting, or forgot to tell them how to hire, or forget to hire how to do an operating plan. And it's this huge gaping hole that we've missed in how we train leaders. So the Manager's Handbook really came about to try to fill this hole that I've seen. A leader after leader who they start a company, they're an entrepreneur, whatever, they get promoted in an existing company, and then they spend years and years and years getting it wrong until finally they figure out how to get it right, when all along the right answer was there to begin with. So, I just got so frustrated. 1,000 feet, where it was a biography about some famous business person that didn't really help me, or it was 300 pages to talk about something that could have been done in 20 pages. And so I tried to write about these 22 critical business skills in as few words as possible, because people who read my book are busy.
I love it.
In the work that I do with leaders, and I could not agree with you more, David. In parsimonious with the words here. Leaders produce possibility in people's minds, and then the handoff is to managers, where the probability of that possibility becomes something that can be leveraged. When you're in your steps here, how do you actually school folks from a management perspective to translate probability into results?
Well, Blaine, that was one of the biggest challenges I had, because I spent about 3 years researching this book. And of course, I came from an original background that I was an entrepreneur, and I only went back to teach school after I'd sort of finished my entrepreneurial career running 5 different companies. So I came with a really practical bent to this. And I identified these 5 skill areas that are absolutely essential to getting things done. So there I had them, right? And well, what good is that? It's a PowerPoint presentation. That's not going to help anybody change behavior. So the bulk of the work I did was to try to take these critical skills and put them into like a paint by numbers approach. So someone could read the book, go, I got it, and literally the next morning implement it. And I wrote the book to try to change behavior, to help people manage. Just challenge in writing the book.
Yeah. Yeah.
David, I went to graduate school for being a lawyer and went to my MBA, and in an academic way, fairly educated, although Stanford was bright enough to reject me twice, both undergraduate and law school. But they bring me in, like you, the highest level of institution, to teach more pragmatic framework of what the real world is, what's going on in the real world, and how to utilize your law degree in a non-traditional manner. I get to speak to those incoming 1Ls. Why is it that we don't institute more education like your book? I'll speak for law school, for example. I don't know one lawyer that graduates law school, that passes the bar, that is ready to practice law. And not one of them is definitely ready to run a law business, with
Right.
a whole nother course that I'm just amazed. Why do you think we stay so much into the theoretical side of education? I know we provide internships and work studies, but that's not the same thing as the actual professor like you coming in and saying, look, here's 2 things that will help you manage people. Here's how you run a meeting. Here's how you have an operating agreement, or whatever it is else that we list out. Why do you think so much resistance to the pragmatic practices that can really help students succeed in their careers?
Yeah. David, I think some of my colleagues at Stanford may not like what I'm about to say, but I think it's
those are the ones that rejected me, by the way. Those are the colleagues that rejected.
All right, so we're not going to worry about them. I think it's because it's easier to do the theoretical. And so, for example, in the course I teach, it's a very hands-on course. We will have someone come down in class in front of the students, and we will practice giving feedback over and over and over again until they and everyone in the class knows how to give good feedback. We call it instant performance feedback. It takes practice.
Yeah.
But it's not as much fun as looking at a pie chart or talking about, what Steve Jobs did one day. But how I refer to it, I was actually speaking at MIT yesterday, and I said, it's like push-ups. You can't win in a sport if you're not willing to do the push-ups. You got to spend the time in the weight room. This is a little bit like spending the time in the weight room, but we let people get away with it. And it's too bad, because, by the way, they graduated, and then soon enough, they're faced with these problems and they're ill-equipped for it.
Yep.
For sure.
Yeah. And I know that you did some work with McKinsey early on in your career. And
Talk about theoretical, right?
Yeah, exactly. I was doing some work. I lived and worked in Japan for about 5 years, and I ran one of the largest kind consultancies in Japan, at that human resource consultancies. And, we had an opportunity to interface with, some McKinsey alums, actually brand new graduates coming out of school. They're the junior consultants, with some of the clients that we were working with. And it was kind of like, you couldn't find your way out of a paper bag if you wanted to, but theoretically you understood how you got in there, and theoretically you understood how you could get out of it. But the practicality, to your point, and just something as simple as, how do you preface a message so that the client can begin to organize around what you want to have happen? Something as simple as that. They had not a clue. And so I'm intrigued with the way that you're actually, practically, I don't know, coin a word here, but practicalizing the management, the art of management, because it is an art.
It is, but it is art. It is art. Full stop. Period. But it's very learnable. If I said to you, I'm not a musician, but if I said, let's say I were, and I was very good at the piano, and I was a piano teacher, I could teach you how to play the piano if you're willing to put the time into it. You may not be, at the Boston Philharmonic, but I can teach you to play the piano. The same thing is true with management. And so that at the end of every chapter, for example, so people don't have to reread the chapter, and each chapter, as you know, is nice and short, is I summarize it. I say, here are the 6 things, or here are the 7 things, or here are the 10 things that you have to remember. So for example, you read the chapter on how to do an exit interview and you go, okay, that makes sense. Now I know how to do it. But it might be 2 months before you read the chapter. Just go to that page, look at that half page and go, got, okay, got it. I'm ready to go.
I love it. It's bite-sized sub-skills that can not only easily and quickly be learned, but also is utilized as a reference point for those people that don't have as many reps in doing it. And now they don't have to pay the dummy tax that the 3 of us have paid to learn those sub skills.
Oh, I love that expression. That's so great.
Yeah, everyone's worried. I live in California. I lost over 100 million in 2008. And I always say, an extra 12% of state tax, that doesn't bother me. I'm looking for people like David Dodson that can save me that 100 million if I just would have learned in law school and business school the reality of asking for help, and where you go to find certain things and how to file things, all the basics. But David Dodson, that book is invaluable. That's why he speaks all around the world, why Stanford in its greatest glory has asked him to be a faculty member as well at the business school, and he speaks in so many other places, pouring in practicality, sub skills, and reference to how to be a better manager. Check out the Manager's Handbook. I promise you won't regret it. Thanks, David. Come back and join us. We have lots more to talk about.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Yes, you're one of the best interviews, but not nearly as good as John's Crazy Socks.
I'm going to look it up.
Look it up. You're going to cry. But look it up. Thank you.
Incredible.
Yeah, we weren't going to cry over the Manager's Handbook. So the Crazy Socks kid, he has such an advantage over most people. Talking about emotions, though, Chris Darwin is here, and we're blessed to have Chris. And he has the Darwin Challenge charity, the darwinchallenge.org. He is the co-founder and CEO of the Darwin Challenge charity. Say that 10 times fast, Blaine, and I'll give you a bonus as well. It's not Charles Darwin. It is Darwin joining us. Thank you so much.
Good morning, David. How are you doing?
Good morning. We know you must be down under in Australia because you're saying good morning. How is tomorrow down in Australia?
Yeah, no, it's very good. It's very good. The stock market goes up, so buy.
Okay.
and is it Blaine? Blaine, is that how you pronounce your Christian name? Nice to meet you as well.
Yep. Nice to meet you as well.
That was a very good interview with the other guy, David. That was really good. Yeah.
Well, we have a lot of fun and hopefully extract some valuable knowledge. Now, I talk about genetic and energetic inheritance, and you are in the lineage of one of my favorite theorists of all time. We don't know if he would have written the Manager's Handbook, but definitely Charles Darwin has changed the world. And I love the fact that energetically and genetically, you've inherited the same meaning and purpose in our lives, is to change the world, to make it a better place, evolution of giving. And I wanted to start with your own thinking systems that you have inherited and how you're applying that to the Darwin Challenge charity.
Yeah, thank you, David. So, I mean, when I say it's my own, I really just plagiarized Charles's system. Charles wrote a very neat little autobiography, which is free on Kindle. So I'm not trying to sell anything to anybody. And it's and it you know, in a slightly kind of 19th century way, runs through five reasons why he was so successful. And he didn't write it to be published. He wrote it for his children, actually. Oh. He wrote it for his children. And wouldn't it be great if Alexander the Great and who are the other amazing, Einstein and maybe Newton had written, you know, a book on how they thought, because we would all read it, surely. And so I encourage your lovely audience to read it. And I'm happy to run through it with you if you wish. But that is basically. Do you want me to go? How long do I have? Is this a 3-minute?
Oh, you got you have at least like 7 minutes. You got plenty of time.
7 minutes.
So yeah, take as much time as you need in the next 7 minutes to completely give us the overview.
Yeah, right. Completely. Okay, 7 minutes. Well, let's start with the easiest one, because it's and I'm gonna ask you too if you do these things, because I've only ever met one person who I won't mention his name, but he's a CFO of one of the big tech companies who does all 5. Do you spend at least 10 minutes a day thinking?
Yes.
You do?
Yep.
And in deep thought. Well, that's great. Okay, fantastic. So, okay, you've passed number 1. Dear audience, Charles Darwin reckoned it was the most, and I should say his wife Emma as well, who was very much part of the team. They reckon the most productive part of the day was the time thinking. And it's not just daydreaming. It's focused, detailed thinking. And he had a thinking walk in his garden, and depending on the size of the problem was the number of pebbles. If it was a 10 pebble problem, he used to walk around the circuit, or Emma used to, and drop a pebble each time. And in theory, you can solve any problem that way. So that's number 1. So have you, David and Blaine, when you are making a decision, do you think about the quality of the facts you're receiving?
Yes.
You do?
I do.
A lot of people don't.
All the time? All the time?
I consider the source.
It's really good.
I try to, but I can't say I do. So I'm out already. David,
you're being a lawyer, I suppose. Facts are very much part. What's your background, Blaine? What's your background?
Education. I guess would be, yeah.
Well, education.
He's a pig farmer. Let's be honest.
I grew up on a farm. I grew up in nature. I used to walk in circles a lot.
All right. Well, the quality of your facts is something which people don't often think about. You know, the best facts Charles Darwin thought were. Well, you tell me what do you think is the best fact, the most reliable fact there is,
based on evidence that can be replicated.
Oh, David, that's very good. Very good. Replicable evidence is, well, interesting enough, Charles, absolutely. But he would love to add one little detail to what you just said there, Blaine. Observed replicable evidence. If David did the research for you, Blaine, and you're pretty sure it could be replicated, it was still David's initial observation that was right. So if you did the research, so he was very big on observation, empirical evidence. So that was his thing. And when you go down through that, you obviously, replicable. I'm so pleased you got that word, because that's the word that is key. You then go down through. You say you saw a pink llama outside the office today. David, you believe it because you definitely saw it. If David goes out, it's being replicated. So now you've got 2 people having seen it. If I say I saw a pink llama outside your office, you probably wouldn't value that highly because you can't. And if you go outside and it's not there anymore, then that's not replicated. So it's somebody else's fact, in inverted commas, fact. And then, and we're starting to get down lower on the thing. And if I said to you, Blaine, I think there is a pink llama outside your office today, and you go, why is that? You live in Australia. I said, I just got a feeling that there is a pink llama. Then you're going down very, very low on evidence. But when you look at how many people make decisions, they go on very, very weak evidence, very, very bad facts. And if you have bad facts going into a system, you will almost always get the wrong answer out the far side. Okay, how are we doing? So that's number 2. Number 3 is a lot of people, when they're making a decision, like you are trying to buy a car, you get set on something. You go, I really like that car. And you maybe have a look at some facts. Charles Darwin encouraged everybody to think about options because it forces you out of your, we all like to get stuff done. We all like to make quick decisions because we want to get on to the next one. Charles Darwin thought about 4 options. If you can do 4 options, it's really good. So try and think of, even if you decide you want to buy a whatever it is, Chevrolet.
Unless you're married, right, Chris?
Well, it's an interesting one. That is a really interesting one. Before you get married, dear listener, I should.
Yeah, sure. Before I got married, I wanted more than 4. Trust me.
Yeah, you don't jump at the first person who sort of smiles at you and looks pretty interesting. Really, because that is, I think, the single greatest way to be happy is find a good partner. So options was I'm glad you got a thumbs up. Thanks, David. Options was number 3. Now we're getting into 2 hard ones. I'm going to leave the hardest to the end. Shall I leave the hardest to the end? The golden rule was Charles's number 4 will do is pay special attention to verifiable evidence that contradicts your dominant paradigm. Now, that contradicts your dominant paradigm. So let's just say you like Joe Biden or you like Donald Trump, which I live in Australia, so I'm not so involved in American politics as you guys are. But I believe that's a pretty hot topic at the moment in the US. Charles Darwin would say, let's just say you like Joe Biden. Try and look at Donald Trump more objectively. Maybe go and watch Fox News, even if you would hate to do that. Maybe have a look at the quality of the facts on Fox News. Are they verifiable? Are they replicable? Or are they just someone's just making up facts? So, and I know that would be a pretty hard thing for many people to do because I believe it's fairly polarized in America at the moment. But just having a look at evidence that contradicts the dominant paradigm. You decide to marry Joe, but something didn't quite make sense. Someone said, oh, look, I think he might have another girlfriend, for example. Follow that up. It's really easy for us to close our minds to the things that do not conform to our worldview. But Charles Darwin, and that was his golden rule, it's the single most important thing he did, was to try and look at evidence that contradicts it. Now, number 5, this one's quite complicated. Do we want to have a break before we do number 5, or shall I just keep plowing on?
We're running out of time.
Right into it.
Running out of time. Okay, quickly. It is have a think about the cogs of how you process facts. So there's intuitive thinking, which we all know, which is what most people use almost entirely all their lives. And then there's deductive thinking, which is Aristotle. And then there's inductive, which is Sir Francis Bacon. I'm not sure if I've quite got the time to explain those 3, but I think what most people do is they use intuitive all their lives. What Charles would encourage you to do is to use deductive or inductive for big decisions. And so, for example, I'd love to finish, tell me what diet you eat and why.
What dart? Sorry,
Diet.
Blaine.
Diet. What you eat. What is your diet and why?
Oh, my diet. Oh,
Yes.
my diet and why. Well, for me, I'm very disciplined in my diet, so it's more about eating, number one, a balanced diet of different things. So I don't believe in eating the exact same thing. And then for me, portion control is essential. So meat, different fish, different vegetables, different carbs, but never overeating. So it's a balanced diet, and I see interest in it. So the reason I do it is I want to live a long life. I know that is my goal. I love life, and I want to live as long as I can.
Isn't that fantastic? So, dear audience, did you hear what David said? So I think you probably picked up the main reason for his diet is living a long life. So that would be a fact that Charles would pick up on. And actually, I think if you looked at David's diet, everything comes down from there. So, and Blaine, is living a long life the most important thing in your diet? I think we lost you for a second there.
Yeah. No, living a healthy long life.
A healthy long life. So so we've got health there as well.
Yes.
Okay. So and how does that change what you eat then? So I suppose what I'm trying to go is I think most people prioritize taste for their diet, actually. Mm-hmm. Taste is the thing that they tend to prioritize most. And I'm interested just to hear how do you do health then? What do you work there?
It's close to the earth, not processed. Wow. And we're both my wife and I are very specific about that. Almost no processed foods exist in our home, to the degree that it's possible in today's marketplace. But a lot of greens, a lot of vegetables, that sort of thing.
It sounds like your farm life. You took it with you to your.
I did.
He lives on an island.
That is really interesting. God, is that a rare diet, Blaine, in America? Because just strikes me it might be.
I think as a general description of the population, it would be rare, but in the circles in which I find myself living and working, not so rare.
There you are. Now that is interesting, don't you think? Have a listen to that. As in, we tend to reflect the people we hang around, or maybe in your case, you've actually selected people based on your attitudes. Does that making some sense, Blaine? Or what is that?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Which the latter?
Yes.
So you're quite intentional about it.
Very intentional.
Interesting. Yeah. Interesting.
Why he's already 105 years old, so he's already lived a long life.
Yeah, look, that's really interesting. Okay, so so in terms of Charles's thinking system, vis-a-vis diet would be, have a think about it. David really cares about long life. Blaine really thinks about healthy and long life, and I suspect your farm life has probably did you have a veggie garden when you were growing up, and your mum would go out and pick veggies? You see, because she was probably a war child, probably, I suppose, and World War One. The Civil War, yeah, right.
I've been reading Ben Franklin's autobiography.
That's right.
Ben Franklin, and Blaine Bartlett was actually mentioned, one of the founding fathers that got left out. It was amazing. I'm blessed to have him as a mentor.
Yes. Well, that's good. Well, so I suppose, my aim in life is to try and help humanity adapt to the realities of the 21st century, and diets are one of the really big impacts we have on the world around us. And what I really love about you guys, and I hope, dear listener, you equally think in the same way, is you're very intentional, as in you've actually got your ideas of what you want to achieve. For me, I try and love myself, others, and the planet. That's my philosophy. And so I would love to bring around, make the 21st century the vegan century. And because I think it actually does reflect the realities of where we sit today. And it sounds like you guys are not far off. What about dairy? Do you both take dairy? Do you eat dairy?
Very minimal. Cheese.
Very minimal.
Yes.
Cheese.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, and why is that? Why do you do that?
I like the taste.
All right. Well, that's interesting. You were responding to my question as in, why do you have cheese? And my question was actually, why do you only have cheese?
Right.
It's
Convenience. For me, it's convenience.
I think it does kind of come back to the flavor profile.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yogurt, milk. Yeah. They've got no flavor for me.
Right. Yeah.
And for me, it's just, I'm gonna have to end this one real quick. But for me, it's convenience. That cheese comes on top of or within a lot of things. So it's inconvenient not to eat cheese, where it's very convenient not to drink milk or to eat dairy products, eggs, etc. It's very easy in the fast-paced, active world that I live in. I just find convenience to be one of the things about cheese, beyond the taste profile. If I can avoid it, I won't order it on or extra. But it is contained in a lot of meals. That would be very odd to pick off the cheese of a pizza or something like that. So this is amazing. Chris, we're going to have you back. Sorry, Blaine, I may hate to cut you off, but people are waiting in the green room.
Yeah.
We are so blessed to have you, but we have so many other shows, Chris. If you don't mind waking up early in the morning and joining us in the afternoon for yesterday, kind of a revisit to your past, Blaine and I would love to have you on other shows and get deeper into how Charles's thinking system can be applied to all of the facets of life, and what we eat and how we take care of our planet are for the sake of what you're doing it. I can tell those are the priorities, what we eat and how it affects or impacts our planet, which is very intentional. You are living your life within the mathematical equation of luck, in my opinion. We pay attention and give intention to the coincidences we want. And I love what you're paying attention and giving attention to, Chris. Thank you for bringing the genetic and energetic inheritance of one of our founding fathers of theory, Charles Darwin. Chris Darwin, thank you again. We'll have you back. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Blaine.
You bet.
Great interview. Once again, a great interview, just not as good as Johnny's Crazy Socks. Check them out.
You gotta look up Johnny's Crazy Socks.
You got to look it up. I'm promoting the crap out of that. All right, thanks. Okay, it's kind of weird how these executive producers of our show, I know we're in episode 606, but Salvatore Buscemi is here. I actually am executive producing a film with his cousin, Steve, called Horse of Fire, about first responders. So we had Charles Darwin's lineage. Now we have Buscemi's lineage, co-founder and CEO of Handbook Partners, Salvatore. Welcome so much. Welcome so much for joining us. Thank you so much for joining us.
First time, long time. It's a pleasure and a privilege, David. Thank you for having me.
Amazing. And your book, Investing Legacy, which is a definite, for me, philosophy of how things aggregate, compound, and accelerate. I just read that this was the first year that Warren Buffett is not at the annual meeting with his friends there at our great financial institutions. But I think Warren Buffett would love your book, because I think it's aligned completely with his philosophy over the last 50 years of how to build wealth and legacy of investing. What are some of the characteristics or components of understanding investing legacy versus how most people think they're investing or try to invest?
Yeah, it's one of the reasons why I wrote the book, is because I've had so many of these conversations before, and really to quantify it, the people who are at the top level, the top 1,000th of the 1%, they have about a net worth of investable assets of $100 million and over. Everybody else is just a rich guy. And how they look at the world is different. They look at the world as, if they've earned it, they want to keep a legacy. We call them the first gens. They become the documentarians after as time goes on. Great cross sections of those, not to be political. Trump is a documentarian. He has his name on everything. If you go to the, from Upper West Side, Upper East Side, from Manhattan to Queens to the, to JFK, you pass by a lot of Trump hotels. George Soros is making, whether it's nefarious or not, he's making his legacy known in the world. And they look at it not so much as, how many BMWs can I buy or Rolls Royces? They're already past that point. And the point of that is, how do I leave an indelible mark on humanity going forward? We've seen this before with the Getty family. We've seen this before with many other wealthy families. But the difference to that, the corollary in that is that they're not investing in Bitcoin. They're not in get-rich-quick mode. And unfortunately, most middle-class Americans today are in get-rich-quick mode. They might emulate Warren Buffett, but they're not investing like him for the long term. They're going into things and they're looking to assert their own status by being smarter than their friends, by being the best surgeon who knows how to flip Bitcoin, or anything that you might see as being very quick and easy, anything liquid, whereas the 1,000th of the 1% gravitate towards really illiquid assets, but they don't need to, because when you have that much cash coming off of your businesses, or if you inherited that much cash, you really don't worry about liquidity. It becomes more of a burden than anything else.
I do a fair amount of work with family offices, and typically, 100 million or more in assets. One of the foundations that I'm working with has got over 200 million that they're husbanding. And the nature of your book, Salvatore, I'd be very interested, because
Call me Sal. If you know my cousin, you can call me Sal. That's fine.
Okay.
All right, call him Sal. Our pal Sal. Welcome.
Yes, your pal Sal. Continue anyway.
Investment biases and other non-quantitative drivers for investment decision making. Now, I'm taking that directly from a crib sheet that I've got here.
Yeah,
that kind of describes the book. But what would be the investment biases, and what would be the non-quantitative drivers?
Okay, so this is a great question, and this is something that we sort of cater to with our families. You want to be known as a guy who is richer, smarter, more connected, and hence more attractive. And so behind your back, your friends are the ones who are going to say, Blaine, I know this guy Blaine, he's an owner of the Dallas Cowboys. All right, all of a sudden your status is high. They're looking into things that create legitimacy the fastest. And, you've all heard of YPC. Owning an NFL sports team is, YPO or YPC on steroids. And I talk about that because what they're gravitating towards are not assets that anybody can get into. There's a barrier to entry there. Whereas with Bitcoin, there's not a barrier to entry. You just have to go into your Instagram DMs to be solicited by someone. They're not looking. These are people who are looking to really put their stake in the ground and say, hey, you know what? I might have, not earned it. I might have earned it, whatever, but I want to make sure that I legitimize it by doing it this way. And for the very rich, it's owning sports teams. And if you look at even some of the most successful Hollywood actors today, like Ryan Reynolds, he's buying a sports team. So this is really what's happening right now. And he's not buying it because they are profitable and they're very insulated franchises that are protected by, their brands. You can't just sell NFL's T-shirts on Fifth Avenue. You'll get shot on sight. However, owning part of a team entitles you to something, but it also gives you a level of legitimacy and status that a Harvard degree won't give you, or owning or leasing a Rolls Royce won't provide to you. I can tell you, I live in Miami. I live in Brickell. I love it. And there are more Lamborghinis here that are rented than Hondas.
Yep.
Yeah, it's insane. People buying shit they don't need to impress people they don't like. And you're looking at someone that in his late 20s and early 30s made over $100 million trying to buy things he didn't need to impress people he didn't like. And I wish I had the mentorship of someone like you. And there's no doubt why the coursework that you teach at Stanford, for example, is voted one of the hottest and most sought after courses in the country at one of the greatest institutions in the world. What do you think it is about what you teach that is so sought after comparatively to all the noise on social media, all the 19-year-old life coaches out there trying to tell us what they actually think they want to know? There is a difference between quantitative value and blowing smoke up people's asses because you run a big family office.
Yeah, I think what you're starting to see today, and the way I see it, and I'm very active on LinkedIn, you can follow me on LinkedIn, anyone who's listening, is you have people who are trying to impart upon you how smart they are. And I wrote that book, my third book, myself. And I did it, actually, I rented a house out in the Hamptons after my mom passed away, and I was just bored. And I called up my publisher and I said, it's time for me to put this together. And it was really all the questions and angst that was put together. And then I figured while people were calling and they were, extending their sympathies to me, I would sort of catch them and say, hey, would you like to give a testimonial on this book? So I was able to bring in people who I sit on boards with, such as Steve Rockefeller for a Boston-based life science firm, former Goldman Sachs partners that I used to work for, who, usually don't do that type of stuff. And what it all comes down to is it's, giving something that's practical and pragmatic versus someone trying to communicate to you how smart they are by their responses on LinkedIn. I can always tell who the MBA is or the person who has a paycheck with a big firm by how they answer things. And that's really what I think, and this better than I do, David, and, I've been a fan of your stuff for years, is the authenticity that counts. And I think people are really gravitating towards that today, not finding out exactly what's the appropriate mix or, how do you value Bitcoin and, people getting into that. I mean, I remember going to a Warren Buffett shareholder meeting in 2004, and you had all these people trying to tell Charlie Munger how, bless his soul, how they valued Berkshire Hathaway. Nobody wants to hear that. It's not really impressive. It's great. But you need to be able to have, some little more depth to be able to get people to understand what's going on. And this book was put together to talk about some of the untold secrets and biases that a lot of these families have had through my experience of managing their money since leaving Goldman Sachs almost 25 years ago. Maybe.
Sal, real quick before I let Blaine ask the last question, what did you think of the movie Good Will Hunting?
I thought I think America was built on that, right? I mean, who is the actor that says all you need is a $2 and a library card and you can get the same degree?
Yeah,
I agree
Matt
with
Damon,
that.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, and it just goes back to, sort of like these unwritten rules that the A students always work for the C students. And they're sort of like, championing that. I know a lot of people who test really well and got into schools, but they could not tie their shoelaces, really. I mean, they're good with a spreadsheet, but they're very awkward socially. They don't know how to take social graces. They have bad breath, and they think that if they quantsplain you, which is a term I used in the book, that you're going to invest with them. And they don't understand that this is much more of a relationship-based business, especially in a post-pandemic world today, gentlemen, where there's an epidemic of loneliness. And I think that's something where, people are looking to invest along like-side people and build communities around that. And the uber wealthy are looking for, well, what else am I going to get for my money, right? How am I going to show this off? That's just really what it is. And, we had an exit not too long ago, actually last month, and we're putting deal toys together and we're sending it out because we're going to improve the status of our investors by saying, hey, you were involved in this deal called Sing Life. You got a big exit. Here's a deal toy. You put it in the middle of your living room in Salt Lake City in your $3 million house. And people are wondering, how did you get involved in this deal? Who do you know? All of a sudden you become infinitely more attractive. Does that make sense?
I love it. Yeah. Awesome.
It is.
Bring it home, Blaine. This is almost getting up to Johnny's Crazy Socks, Johnny Crazy Socks interview.
I think I know that company very well, and I'm very proud that they've been blossoming the way they have.
Yeah, that. So incredible father and son, isn't it? It's,
Long Island team, correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
He went to my prep school. His father went to my prep school. That's how I know it. Yeah.
He's my kind of guy, and of course, John, if you don't love John, then you're not a human. There's no doubt about it. Well, go ahead, Blaine.
No, Sal, I can go on this conversation.
I got all night, so go right ahead, gentlemen. It's fine.
Okay. Yeah. The name of your firm, I'm fascinated by the naming philosophy.
Brahmin Partners. Yeah. So I mean, it's a nomenclative homage to our Boston-based families. It's the Boston Brahmins. But the East Indians love it too, because the Brahmin is the highest caste order. So you can imagine that they love wearing the fleece vest with Brahmin partners on it, walking around, again, elevating their status, right? But it is something where a lot of the founders and families who have supported myself and my partner, who is from Boston, and I'm from New York myself, it doesn't really matter to me, but it is, pretty much of a clever homage to the community that we built together over the past few years, and that's why we branded it that way.
Well, yeah, just a closing piece on that one. The reason I brought that up is because I was curious about the relational dynamic, because language, words create a relationship. So the relationship that you have with your investors, the relationship that you have with your clients and whatnot, I know just based on this brief conversation that is in the forefront of everything that you do. And I mean, my curiosity had to do with just the nature of Brahman, because that, to your point, from a spiritual perspective, that's exactly where that moves to. It's about connection. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Let's hook up in New York, Sal. We got a lot of stuff going on. I'd really love to spend some time with you. You and I have a shared mindset on reality and authenticity, but also the quantitative analysis of making more money, helping more people, and having more fun. And I can tell by the strategies in the book that you've written, in the books previous that you've written, we would have a great time together. Hopefully Blaine can join us as well. I'll have my team reach out. Hopefully we can see you soon.
Absolutely. Absolutely. For you guys.
Keep up the great work.
Thank you very much.
Please let me audit your course at Stanford. They didn't let me in, but maybe they'll let me audit, and I can sit up in one of those.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. I'll try to fit in. I'll pickle up my ass and try to fit in.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you.
You got it, brother.
Thanks, Sal.
All right, on. Squeeze that in. My brothers are cringing right now at me, as they usually do. Blaine, what's your takeaway of the day?
Oh, I think lightness is my takeaway for the day. Lightness. Just kind of the lightness of being, and just, yeah, you posted something up. I think it was probably on the IG platform, but yeah, don't take yourself so bloody seriously. I think we can get through a lot in life if we stop taking ourselves and others so seriously. And
I love that.
Yep.
Yeah, and I'll tell you once again, I'm just so appreciative of you and how you pour back into our community, and whether it be family, friends, associates, employees, or my community at large. I just keeps coming back to me the takeaway of today, which is the intentionality of quantifiable articulation. And you are able, and so are our guests today, to give a quantifiable, substantive analysis and understanding to others. And all three of our guests were very pragmatic in their theories, and ironically all had inherited extremely intelligent, intuitive, and inspirational people, but they've inherited theories at the highest level from world thought leaders. And they have taken those, whether it's the Rockefellers or Darwin, or Jobs. It didn't matter. They have taken them and created a framework, and to, like you, be articulated, not in a subjective manner, to be verbose and grandiose and have people, like I said, suck up to you because you can talk about social agrarian society and blah, blah, blah. In other words, something that you could learn with less than $2 of late fees just watching YouTube now, but instead actually give it that thought, the time to think intentionally, come up with our own ideas, and be able to give it a framework and a quantitative analysis. So Blaine Bartlett, that's the double B, double D's today. We got all kinds of replicable evidence of genius, the expression of God you find here on Office Hours with the great pieces and parts of God, meaning Blaine Bartlett. If you are moving possibilities into reality, then you're utilizing people like Blaine in your life. Surround yourself with the right people, the right ideas. You show me your friends, I'll show you your future. My future looks bright because I'm sitting next to Blaine Bartlett. Thanks for joining me, my friend.
David, always. I love you, man.
Love you too. That was so much fun. Not quite as fun as John's Crazy Talks, but it's really fun. Thank you. All right, everyone.
Have Nick send me the link.
You got to get the link. Send it to me, Luca. All right. Thank you, Blaine. Reminder for everyone, because we're doing a lot. We're very active. Be a ferocious Buddha. Show up to our Friday training. I'm going to do an extraordinary training tomorrow. I'm going to apply what I think pragmatically is the quantum mind. People are misunderstanding quantum leap and quantum mindfulness, as well as consciousness. And so I'm going to give my best shot at being able to describe a quantum mind and how to utilize the aggregation, acceleration, and compounding impact that a quantum mind has, with pragmatic framework and practices aligned with my takeaway today. Email me if you haven't registered. Over 100,000 people have registered for our free Friday training, 6 a.m. Pacific time tomorrow. David at dmeltzer.com. As I mentioned, we will be in New York, but first I'll be speaking to Blaine's alma mater. I'll be speaking to the Oregon Duck football team. Come and join me up there in Oregon to that championship organization, the Oregon Duck football team. Super proud of that. Then we're going on to New York and Atlanta and Miami with the biggest names in the world, whether it be Tim Story, Gary Vaynerchuk, whether it's A-Rod or Goggins, they're all going to be joining me on this trip. So please, Oregon, New York, Atlanta, Miami, Newport Beach, SoFi Stadium, Mastermind, we will keep you active here on Office Hours. I want to thank everyone for joining me. Remember, most importantly, be more interested than interesting. Be kind to your future self. Do good deeds. We'll see you at 6 a.m. tomorrow for the Quantum Mind training. Have a beautiful evening. Thank you.